One of the early videos I ever posted on YouTube, I was playing the Return of the Jedi Atari 2600 game for like 30 seconds. I destroyed the Death Star, but I couldn't avoid um, the ship blowing up because it got hit with a little ball of fire. It's my philosophy on Star Wars. I'm in my heart. It's Star Trek for me. We need to judge every sci-fi franchise by the conventions it sets for itself within that universe. We need to ask what works in in its own universe. You kind of get me? So, and you know, Lucas was the first to say Star Trek is science fiction, Star Wars is science fantasy. So if you set up a science fantasy universe where it's black and white, right and wrong, heroes with thousands of faces. That's how that works. Now, you can have a lot of fun in it, and there have been hits and misses. Same thing can be said for Trek. So, you know, it's not a perfect franchise. I was born in 1975. One of my earliest memories is of a Tusken Raider at the beginning of A New Hope, and being taken out of the theater because I was frightened, as my 2-year-old self would be when you're rah, 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 you know, and all that in the theater. So I have, and we don't have memories of our childhood so much as memories of the memories we think we had of our childhood, but that is an early one. The sand person, the Tusken Raider. I don't have any childhood memories of seeing Empire in the theater, but I do have a fondness for the Muppet Show episode with Mark Hamill that came out during Empire. I'll have to, you know, there's no instant recall memory of Empire in the theater in 1980. I would have been 4 years old. I was born in late 75, so it was really 76. But I do have a fun memory of 1983's Return of the Jedi. I remember being in the theater, and I remember purposely walking out before Vader took off his mask because I didn't want it to scare me. And I was just kind of waiting in the hallway for that scene too. Now, that might have been the second time I saw it as a kid, which is probably why I remember it more, because I know I saw Jedi more than once in the theater in 1983. And, of course, I grew up with the toys. I have my bona fides when it comes to Star Wars, so you know you can't help but love it, and know the first three movies, the first three movies, the first real three movies, and know them and love them, and have them memorized and say them back to front. But I can't say that I've sat down to watch any of the original Star Wars movies in at least 15 years. Oh, in fact, just a moment. I feel that there's going to be a different episode on this card because all I want to do is rhapsodize about Star Wars now for like 10-15 minutes. Here, and I had an earlier version of this too, which I still have the box for, but it's upstairs. These are the THX versions of the VHS. Now, these were not mine as a child, as a teen. I found them in my local thrift shop a couple years ago, and you can see that I was enjoying watching Jedi. Oh, well, scratch that. I did watch Jedi. I watched this version of it because it has the Nug Nugs. It has the Celebrate the Life song at the end. And that no longer exists. And that makes me sad. So that's why I kept the pre-97 versions of these movies. Because that's what they should be. Okay, now, we're not going to talk about this card. I'm not going to flip this over. I'm going to finish this talk about Star Wars. Now you got me going. Now, here's my 2 cents as a PhD in English. We need to see those original versions. They need to exist, and here's why. Because there have been plenty of authors. Thomas Hardy comes to mind. Look up Thomas Hardy. Thomas Hardy's great stuff. You know, he wrote a lot of his novels, and then and then maybe 30 years later went and revised them pretty heavily, right? But you can still buy both versions of his novels. One, the revisions, and one in the original. And whichever one you'd like, you can read. And then the discussion takes place, depending on if you get a Norton Critical Edition or something like that. Discussion takes place as to the changes and why. And the scholarship on Thomas Hardy is all about a lot of these revisions and these changes that he made in like 1912 compared to his editions from, the 1870s or 1890s or whenever. I'm not getting the years right, but I think 1912 was when he went back as a very old guy, and rewrote a lot of these. And so whichever edition you're exposed to, right? It's still worthy to watch. So I'm not downgrading the 97 revisions. But as a writing instructor, as someone who appreciates literature and studies it, you can't study that without the originals. You can't. That's why director's cuts exist, but the original that came out also exists because they're worth comparison. They're worth comparing, right? Plenty of other movies do this. You get to see the original director's cut. Look at the Blade Runner stuff. You can watch any version of Blade Runner you want. Why that's not the case here is troublesome, because one must. This is not a sacred franchise, okay? I get that a lot of people like it, but it's nothing special. Sorry, it's not. It's not. It's not gospel. There are movies based on Flash Gordon serials. Lucas was just a big geek. He wanted to do one movie that became 3 and that consumed his entire career afterward, which I think he later regrets. But I don't know. I'm not George Lucas. I got like 3 books on Lucas over there I might read. What was I talking about? Yeah, so, I mean, they need to exist in some way, shape, or form. It just can't be something to ignore. I mean, come on. Now, now this is becoming a larger dissertation. Now, I guess I had a lot to say about Star Wars. I will continue those discussions, but let's just keep it capped right now for feels like 15 minutes already. Let's keep it capped just on where the discussion went. I'm going to geek out to my THX versions. I'll show you the box for the previous version so I could find it upstairs. But no, I've never been in the mood to watch these movies since the 97 revisions. I'm going to call them revisions. I know documentary people have been talking about this since 97. I know I'm hardly the first one. But the argument I've never heard is one that I kind of just made from a literary perspective. These films are literature, not the greatest literature, but you cannot deny their cultural impact. And by not issuing the originals, you're doing a disservice. Okay. And as for all the new stuff, I enjoyed The Mandalorian and Boba Fett. And that's about it. Okay, so I'm going to stop this now, and we're going to do another show on whatever's behind this card. So maybe I'll just call this Introduction to Star Wars and what it may mean. And all right, to be continued. Like right now, but not for you. Well, maybe later on. Whatever.